In web application, when you have lot of requests, if you use simple connection, as I have given here statements, right? So simple driver manager dot get connection will take lot of time to get the connection from database via network. It should, you know, make a call from here to there, and it should get the response connection object. Then it should create statement. It should execute queries, and finally you need to close connection. That means your connection will be returned back to database. When there are so many concurrent requests coming from the front end, database cannot able to serve that many connections at a time. Database will have limited sessions, whereas your web application will have huge number of sessions. So Tomcat will not block users or any web server. It will accept so many users requests, maximum to maximum. At a time it can accept 1 million requests also. 1 million requests your application server will accept, but database will not accept. Database is having a sensitive tables information. It cannot able to run that much faster. So as it is having very limited connections, you should able to serve that limited connections only to all the people who are coming for registration. If you use a simple approach of driver manager to get connection and to open connection, then creating statement, executing, then closing, it may not able to respond that much concurrently to the web request which is coming. So to deal such scenarios, we understand the problem. When we have so many users and we have limited connections only, when I use driver manager dot get connection, right? Let's say for example, if I have 10 connections here, for first 10 users it will able to give the 10 connections. For the remaining 990 users it will give exception saying that connection not available. This is the thing that we'll do. Hey guys, getting just a minute. Yeah. So for the remaining 990 users, it will say there is no connection. Already 10 connections are consumed by first 10 users. Of course, it will release the connection, but it will take a lot of time. Student not aware of that when these connections are releasing and when it is available to registration again. Technically, whoever doing registration here, they don't know about it. Then you have to provide something else to achieve the scenarios. What you can do is you can create connection pool. From connection pool, if you try to get connections, it will execute faster than the database. Instead of borrowing connection from the database, you can get it from connection pool itself. It will be available beside your application itself or within your application itself under connection pool object. As soon as users requested, you can get immediately connection from connection pool and you can execute statements. Getting connection from connection pool and placing it back into connection pool will not take much time. Like getting database connection and closing database connection will take a long time, right? Whereas getting it from connection pool is simple. And one more thing, though you have so many concurrent users also, you need not to worry. As much as faster it will give connection, it will execute statement and it will place it back so that next user can pick up that. In case still connection not available, it will hold the user for a few seconds. That waiting time also you can set up. Let's say if you want to wait, make them wait up to next 5 seconds or 10 seconds. If that is your wish, you can make them wait. In case of busy situations, they will wait. They can understand that okay, something is happening, network delay or something, and they will wait. Or else you may get the request and you can keep it into wait state Between, you can send them an intermediate message saying that okay, we taken your record, we will process it and get back to you. Something message you can send them, and slowly you can process all the records into database. You need not to lose your business. So any number of requests, let it come from your web server to DAO. DAO can handle it with the connection pool. So for this connection pool, there is a design pattern. I don't want to go into it now, but I just want to show you it. Connection pool, a pool design pattern it will use, object pool design pattern it will use. So connection pool is based on object pool design pattern. Object pooling design pattern is used when the cost of creating new objects is higher. As per object pooling design pattern, the application creates objects in advance and places them into pool. See, nice description they give. What they are mentioning is, when we go for it is, object pooling design pattern is used when the cost in terms of time, resources like CPU, network, and input output operations of creating new object is higher. They are saying, when we do this, when object creation is very costly for you, connection creation from database is really costly job. Creating connection from database and closing connection on database is really costly job, because database need to open sockets and it need to provide connection, again it need to close. So a lot of network back and forth, your request should go there and it should come back. That is what they mentioned here. As I said, it will take time, it will take lot of CPU time also every time to request connection, and it will take network bandwidth also to travel from your application to database, and there it need to open sockets, input output operations, it need IO operations, obviously. So when cost of creating new object is very higher, then they are recommending to create or put them into pool. As per object design pattern, the application creates an object in advance and place them into pool or a container. Or for example, I have a corporate office. There, you know, 20,000 people working. For 20,000 people, corporate office want to provide cab service. Cab service. So will they hire 20,000 cars to provide cab facility to 20,000 employees, or will they hire 10 or 20 cars and they will give time slots to employees to book their cab and use that service? They'll basically put limited number of cabs, limited number of cars in a carpool, and they will ask employees to reserve whoever is required. So that's a kind of carpooling. They have limited resources. They can't hire, you know, 1 lakh cars for 1 lakh employees. They can create a carpool, and as and when car is free, you guys can book and you can travel. Similarly, here connection getting from database is costly job every time. Instead getting from database, you can keep it into a pool. From pool you can fetch it and utilize it. That is what they are saying here. A nice statement. So it will follow object pool design pattern. Actually, for connection pooling, there is a separate. Of course, we follow object pool pattern only in simple words, but here I have object pool design pattern. For object pool, it uses hash table to keep your records. Let's say when you create connections, right? These all connections will be created into one hash table. And again, it is having this hash table is having two references. One locked hash table reference, one is unlocked hash table reference. Locked and unlocked. And given expiration time also. Expiration time, I think this is for cleanup. In case by this 30 seconds, if nobody using, if you want to clear the pool. So one locked and one unlocked hash table created. Map can hold key and value. So there are two map objects, locked and unlocked. Check out what they are doing. If you see, check in. Let's say JDBC connection pool implementation given here. So when you call create, it will create connection and it will return to you. So to get the connection using checkout method, it's a lengthy one, guys. If you want to, see your own connection pool, I would recommend you to go through it. But for this moment, I don't want to go into that. You guys can go. I shared the link with you. Because why we use MVC instead of JSP? JSP also part of MVC only. Okay. Yeah, you guys can go through it. It's very low level connection pool design pattern. But here we don't use any custom connection pool. In case if you really like to do that, you guys can do. So for creating connection pools, right? Connection pools are very, 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 very important for any application. Okay. Remember that connection pool is very, very important. High priority in any application connection pool. But you need not to bother. Connection pool implementations are already given. You just need to know how to use them. That's it. So for connection pool in our Java API, data source interface given. For single connection, we have connection interface. If it is a single connection, connection interface we will use to get the connection. So this connection interface will have lot of implementations, right? Arkel given Oracle connection. When you use Arkel driver, Arkel will provide Oracle connection. If it is a MySQL driver will provide MySQL implementations. Lot of implementations we have. MySQL implementation class. For each and every database, right? They given implementations. If it is DB2 connection. If it is a SQL server, SQL connection, like this. Each database partner given implementations. Excuse me, guys. So Sun given this class, Sun Microsystem given this class in the beginning, and implementations given by a lot of partners. Oracle database given this implementation, MySQL database given this implementation, and Microsoft given this implementation, and IBM given this implementation. Lot of implementations from lot of database partners. We know why we are using different jar file for each type of database, because they are providing connection implementations. So though interface is available with us in JDK, interface is not at all sufficient. So that's the reason we configure a jar file into our application and we load this driver classes to get the connections of database vendors. Same way for connection pool also, Sun given a data source, Sun given a data source interface, and you can provide implementations to it. If you want to implement a standard connection pool, you need to implement it from data source. So that data source must having this kind of similar connection pool, object pool design pattern techniques. So you need to implement data source. So we have a lot of implementations from it. Apache given dbcp jar file. If you go to your Tomcat, right, there you can find dbcp jar file. Under that dbcp jar file, there is a class name called basic data source. This is implementation class of data source interface from Apache. Basic data source. Spring given data source. Spring API. In Spring itself we have, in Spring jar files we have basic, not basic, right? A driver manager data source. Driver manager data source. Driver manager data source we have from Spring. But this is useful for one connection only. It cannot hold more than one connection. One connection when and for which applications we use. If it is a standalone application, you can use it. And this is unlimited. N number of connections, unlimited. Unlimited connections, you can keep it under Apache implementation. And there are so many implementations. If you guys can Google it, so many providers are providing it. C3P provider providing combo pooled data source. And if you see WebLogic will provide WebLogic data source. Every application server is providing data source. If you see JBoss data source, you can find so many implementations we have. Spring Boot personally, they are using in Spring Boot Hikari data source. Spring JDBC is having this. In Spring JDBC, when we add Spring JDBC dependencies, Hikari data source will be used. So there are so many data sources are using. Default, this one is using in Spring Boot. This is the one default data source that has been using. In Spring, it's up to you. In Spring Boot, this is the one. In Spring, it is up to you which one you want to use. Apache one you want to use, or Combo Pool you want to use, Hikari you want to use, or else let's Google it and find how many data source, or let's identify what are all the famous data source implementations we have. Connection pool, list of connection pool providers for Java. The given story, why connection pool, why we need. You guys can find out there is no straight answer, but here he mentioned Apache Commons, Hikari, C3PO, C3P0 basically it is. I believe there are hundreds of connection pool providers, okay? Not limited. Find out which is the free one. These all are free data sources only. You can use them. And most famously we use this one, or you can go through this one, or you can use this one as well. Okay. Driver manager data source is having limitation that it can hold one connection only. So maybe not recommended for your standalone, okay? Recommended for standalone, not for the web scenarios. How to use them? Simple. In your application, you need to add the jar file and you have to use it. If you see previous example, already we have done an example here. Somewhere we created configuration with the connection pool. Do you remember which one it is? Config, yeah, here. So if you see this application, let me go through it, okay? I have a controller here. Controller post method is getting considered this scenario, okay? Consider the scenario which we have discussed so far. Students are doing registration from their front end, name, email address, phone number are submitting. I'm taking the data here into the post method. Consider this is your backend service. Your post method is receiving data. Consider 1000 students are requesting here. So as soon as they call this, immediately it will start execution. So it will call service create method. The execution will go to create method of your service. There it is calling your DO class service save method. So the request will go to the save method of your DO. Inside save method, instead of using class dot for name driver manager dot get connection, what I am using here is for connection I am using something else. Data source dot get connection I'm using. I'm just calling data source dot get connection. I'm asking data source, please give me connection. Yes, it will provide you connection object. But what it is a data source interface. Will really interface having implementations? Will interface having really a object here means no. But this interface is auto-wide with a implementation object. Any implementation object can be auto-wide into it. As we see, right? So many data source implementations we have. So which one must have auto-wide here? We have created a data source here as a bean. So which implementation we have used here? Basic data source. A basic data source object is creating here. Then we are setting all the parameters into data source, driver class name, URL, username, password, and maximum active connections, maximum waiting time. Then this data source object I am returning here. Why it is accepting this return? Basically basic data source I should have here to accept the return. My return data source is accepting. The reason is data source is parent for basic data source. That's why it is accepting your return which is in basic data source. Finally, which bean is created here? Basic data source bean. Which type of bean it is? Data source type 1. So this bean is available in your container. This bean is available in your container. When this configuration class at the rate bean method is executed, the data source is created and ready for the dependency injection. As and when it created your DAO object, repository scanning, right? When it do component scan, your DAO object will be created and it will enter into your class and it will see what dependencies you have. IOC will see, okay, DAO is having data source dependency. Then IOC will check Did I have any data source dependency object with me? Yes, I have a data source. Let me inject it here. So IOC will inject this data source object, whichever you created, right? This data source object, it will be injected here automatically. So as soon as front end request is coming here into the save method, when I place this line data source dot get connection, right? It will provide one connection from your connection pool. Just it will pick a connection from connection pool. Here you have pool of connections. Just it will get one connection from connection pool when you call this. Then you need to create statement, execute your statement. Finally, you should not forget closing your connection. I borrowed connection from connection pool. Again, I should return it to connection pool. When you call connection dot close, usually if this connection is borrowed from connection pool, just it will trigger it will trigger close method of data source. It will not directly go to database and it will not return to database. I got connection from data source, so when I call connection dot close, the connection again will be returned to data source one. So whatever connections, just imagine Akshit came and Dikshit came and he tried to do the CRUD operation. Immediately for him, it will reserve one connection. So one more user also came. For him, it will provide one more connection. At a time, let's say all the users came and for them, it will reserve connections in database. It will reserve all the connections. As soon as Dikshit completed with his operation, it will release connection. When you call connection dot close, right? When you call driver manager dot when you call data source dot get connection, it will reserve connection here. When you finally call connection dot close after your DB operation, it will release your connection. When you call close, right, all these connections will be released. When you call connection pool dot get connection, it will reserve them. When you call close, it will clear them. So this is happening continuously. Reserving connections, clearing connections, reserving connections, clearing connections based on number of users. Let's say 1 lakh users requested and if they are in queue, so continuously it will open connections for first 10 users, then immediately it will release and it will occupy for the next users, then it will release, then next it will occupy for the next users, then again it will release. Continuously it will occupy and release your connections. But finally, it will hold all these connections with connection pool only. It will not give it back them to database. It will keep all your connections into connection pool only, so that let lakhs of users request this method also, it will not freak out. It will not fail. It will keep stand and it will execute for all your users. It will not even make fail of single DB operation until unless your database is down. Your database is up, your application will stand very strongly and it will execute all these CRUD operations. Such a powerful it is, right? Now, simple thing I'll do here just for your realization, okay? I'll create one more bean also with a simple connection. Simple connection also I'll create, but yeah, technically this is not, I can't do it, but yeah, let me use simple connection technique also. Simple connection technique also. I'll implement a DAO. This save method is using data source connection. I need pure database logic also. Can I find JDBC style also we implemented one. Okay, if not available, nothing to worry. Just let me write this same code in JDBC also, see the difference. Save method with the connection pool. save method with the JDBC. In case of JDBC, we load driver oracle dot JDBC dot oracle driver, load it. Then we call driver manager dot get connection oracle colon thin colon at the local host colon 1.1 xc. Perfect. So this is pure JDBC style. Okay. Now let's call this method from your service, or let me have two types of methods here itself. I have create method with the data source, create with the JDBC, save JDBC. Using JDBC, I am calling this save method. Okay. So this method via JDBC, this method via data source. Via data source, this traffic is going via JDBC, this traffic is going. This is like a super fast. This one will get exceptions. This, if you go with this route, that realization we can see here. DAO service is fine. Now controller. In my controller, I'll be having post create with the JDBC. Okay, so I have IOC test here. Just to see real data I'm inserting here. Um, Let me check my database also. Which table we are using? RBU employee, right? Select the star from RBU employee. So I have 7 records. Let me see. Do I have primary key here in this table? Member, yes, it is primary key data type. Okay. So after 7, right? If you want to see the count of employees, select the count of star. So the count is 6. 6 records I have so far. You guys can see, right? 6 records I have. Now using connection pool, let me insert at a time 10,000 records. For each, int I equal to 0. Already 7th record onwards I have set. I equal to 8, I plus plus. I want to iterate next 10,000 8 times. Okay, this many times I want to iterate it. This many iterations I want to do here, and I want to insert a record here. Okay, Nitish record only I am inserting with the new ID. Okay, so Just execute it and see. 10,000 records are getting inserted. So now the time is 8 o'clock. Okay, reset. And you can see the timer also, how much time it will take. Let's execute it. So I'm starting the timer and run your code. So hardly we started. Yeah, hardly took. It is taken 26 seconds. In 26, not even 26, I believe it may be 20 seconds. It inserted all 10,000 records. You can go to database and check the count now. 10,006 existing 6 and now current 10,000. So 10,006 records got inserted into database now. See, if you go and go, you will see the same record for the next 10,000 times. If you don't have this output success statements and all right via data source, it might execute it very faster. Internally, it is executing faster. For you, it is giving response slowly via system.out.println. It will take some time when you use SOP, right? It will lag your output. Now the same thing, try to execute, same thing, right? Try to execute via JDBC. I'll write one more test class here. IOC test JDBC1. Now here, instead of calling this post, I will call post with JDBC. Already 10,000 records got inserted, right? I'll start from 10,008, 10,008 to 20,008 I'll insert. Okay. So then my count should increase from 10,006 to 20,006. Now you may start your timer and check. Go and start it. Hey, do you think this is executing? Okay. Consider it has taken 1 minute time. Is it inserted really in that 1 minute? Means if you see, listener reviewed connection with the following error. No appropriate service handler form. Connection descriptor used client was localhost. It is fetching up. It is giving connection not available, right? It is refusing. So how many records it might have inserted? Guess. Earlier I have count 10,006. Now check the count. After this JDBC inserted records. Not even a single record inserted. I think from first connection onwards, we are using connection pool also, na? So connection pool must have resolved all the connections. JDBC is not getting even single connection. Is it? Okay. Let me do one thing. For connection pool, I will give only two connections. Maybe my database is unable to provide not even a single connection. Already connection pool is reserved everything. At least try with this. Okay, let me stop it and see at least one record insert. Not even one. It should have. I think local host 1521 colon xc something we should have mistake. Oracle dot jdbc Oracle dot jdbc dot oracle driver. Is colon Oracle colon thing colon at the rate local host colon xc. Wrong password. Okay, now try it. At least few insertions it will do. Okay, later it will fail. Okay, now at least check. I'm stopping it. Continuously it is giving failure message. Is DB locked my JDBC? At least one connection I should get here, right? At least one. At least one insert has to be executed. Database unlock. Correct. Now I changed it. It is changed. System reduce it should be fine now. Let me run it in debug mode. I want to see. Debug. JDBC save method it came via JDBC it is executing an exception. SQL exception the account is you are correct. The account is locked. I don't know how to unlock. Why it is locked? Because of wrong password. Acha acha. With wrong password we continuously started hitting it. Unlock, right? Five times in a row, your account gets locked. To unlock your account, you need to reset password. How to unlock? Click trouble sign in a sign in page, enter your username, next click enter answer to challenge questions. My god. Enter username, account unlock. Let's try. It must be unlocked. Next time, next hit. Okay, I got message account locked. Okay, the next iteration, success. Okay, now let me remove this debug pointer here. Skip the debug and execute it. See, it started few records inserting, few records failing, few inserting, few failing. If you see in between, right, sometimes success is getting here and there one success you can see. Let it finish and see finally how many records. So if 10,000 students come to registration, let's say if I am going to conduct workshop, if they try to get registered, if you have implemented JDBC code, let's see how many will get success. 20,000. Okay, let's see. Earlier it is 10,006. Now it is 10,311. Hardly 300 records inserted. Out of 10,000 iterations, 300 records inserted. See the failure. 9,000 records, almost 9,700 records got failed because connection not available. How this at least 300 are inserting after first 15 users? Maybe again database is taking some time to close the resources and to provide the resources. There it is taking time, then it is able to provide the connections back. By that time, so many user CRUD operations are getting failure. So we have huge data loss here. So to overcome that, if I go with connection pool, you can have any big count, it will handle it. If you go with this first approach, it will handle it easily. Okay, so you guys do this example, I'll share it, and as an assignment, right, you guys try other connection pool implementations also here. Okay, in data source, try to download other providers jar files and add it into your application and do it. In the configuration, I am using here basic data source. You try with other data source classes. Just this code need to be changed. Mostly all data sources are providing the setter methods. By calling setter methods, you need to set driver, URL, username, password, and maximum active waiting time and all. So check with the Hikari connection pool. Okay, you guys try with this other two dependencies also. Okay, we saw this. You guys try this one, and this one as well. Okay, at least one. Any one of you can try and let me know before tomorrow's session. Okay, we'll continue from there. Any questions so far?